welcome to Wealth Redefined. I'm your host, Michael Reynolds, certified financial planner and owner of Elevation Financial. Thanks for joining me as always. I'm on the web at elevationfinancial.com if you want to find me there. All right, today we're going to talk about Trump accounts, a parent's guide to the new savings vehicle for kids. So if you have a child or grandchild maybe born in 2025, 2026, 2027, or 2028, there is a new savings tool maybe worth knowing about. It's called the Trump account. It was created under the One Big Beautiful Bill and governed by the new IRS Revenue Code Section 530A. Trump accounts are tax advantage accounts designed to give children a financial head start before they reach adulthood. So let's talk about what you need to know about these accounts. First, what is a Trump account? A Trump account is a type of traditional IRA for minors. It's designed for children under age 18 and operates under special rules during what the law calls the growth period, which is the time from when the account is opened until December 31st of the year before the child turns 18. Once the child turns 18, those special rules go away and the account operates a lot like a standard traditional IRA, with one exception. If you keep the account as a Trump account rather than rolling it into a regular IRA, it's excluded from the IRA aggregation rules under Section 408. So that means it stands on its own. It's not lumped in with other IRA accounts for calculation purposes. So think of it this way. If the account is set up, the money goes in and sits locked and growing until the child turns 18. So what is the main advantage of this account? The $1,000 pilot program, which is kind of free money for newborns, is really the main advantage in my opinion. So that's one of the most compelling features. It's the government will make a one-time $1,000 deposit into a Trump account for each qualifying child born in 2025, 2026, 2027, or 2028. And to qualify, the child has to be born during one of those calendar years, has to be a U.S. citizen, has to have a valid social security number, and being a qualifying child of the person making the election under IRC Section 152. So there's no catch beyond that. It really is just a free $1,000. You don't have to add anything else to the account if you don't want to. The $1,000 is just a seed money contribution from the government. That said, the pilot program is funded at $410 million and remains available through September 30th, 2034. But with roughly 3 million births per year, the funding, could run out earlier than that. So acting sooner rather than later would be in your best interest if you want to take advantage of this. So no pilot program contributions will be deposited before July 4th, 2026, which is 1 year from when the bill was signed into law. So let's talk about how much you can contribute. You can contribute up to $5,000 per year to a Trump account. Starting after 2027, that limit will be indexed for inflation in multiples of $100. So there's a few rules around contributions to be aware of. The pilot program's $1,000 and any qualified general contributions, such as those from foundations like the one established by Michael Dell, for example, do not count toward the $5,000 annual limit. Also, employer contributions under Section 128 do count, up to $2,500 per employee per year as part of a cafeteria plan. Unlike a traditional IRA, where you have until April 15th of the following year to make a contribution, Trump account contributions must be made between January 1st and December 31st of the contribution year. There's no grace period beyond that. There's also one hard rule that trips people up sometimes, and that is that only one Trump account is allowed per child. You can't have two parents, two grandparents, and an aunt each set up separate accounts the way you can with a 529 plan. If one parent sets up the account and the other parent tries to open a second one, it will automatically be rejected. So who can open a Trump account? The law is pretty specific about who is authorized to open a Trump account and in what order. First, legal guardian, second parent, so basically legal guardian or parent in that order, adult sibling, or grandparent. A grandparent can't open the account if a legal guardian, parent, or adult sibling is available. So it has to be in that order. So how do you open one? There are two ways to establish a Trump account. First is file form 4547 with your tax return or as a standalone filing, or use the online portal at trumpaccounts.gov. which lets you sign up online. It just takes a few minutes. It's very, very quick. One important note, if you've already filed your tax return and you want to establish an account, you can't go back and amend the return. You would need to file the form as a standalone document or just use the online portal, which is, in theory, more convenient. Also, the account must be established before January 1st of the calendar year in which the child turns 18. All right, let's talk about investing the money. What can the money be invested in? So during the growth period, Trump accounts can only have certain types of investments inside of them. The law calls these eligible investments. And these have to be mutual funds or ETFs that follow these general guidelines. One, they have to track a broad index of primarily US companies, for example, the S&P 500. They can't carry expense fees of more than 0.1% of the account balance, and they can't focus on a specific industry or sector. Also, you can't use money markets or cash. You've got to invest it. So once a child turns 18 and the growth period ends, the account operates more like a traditional IRA, and you can have more choices and a broader range of investment options at that point. So you might be wondering, does the Trump account create a tax deduction? No, it does not. There's no federal deduction for contributions to a Trump account. That means contributions made by parents, guardians, or others from their own money are made with post-tax dollars, which could be good news because it actually establishes basis in the account. And here's why that matters. When the account is eventually distributed at some point, you will only owe income tax on the portion that exceeds the basis. So if you contributed $5,000, the account grew to $10,000, you would only pay income tax on the $5,000 in earnings, not the $5,000 you already paid tax on as an initial contribution. So the thing to note is not all contributions create basis. So for example, the $1,000 pilot program contribution or qualified general contributions from foundations and employer contributions under Section 128 do not create basis because they are pre-tax dollars. Only contributions from personal sources, which is what the law calls contributions from other sources, establish basis. All right, so what happens after the child turns 18? Once the growth period ends, the special rules that govern Trump accounts disappear. The account transitions to a standard traditional IRA type of rule under Section 408. The child will owe income tax on distributions, and a 10% early withdrawal penalty applies if it's withdrawn early, unless there's some exception under Section 72. So at that point, the child has two options. They can leave the account as a Trump account. The aggregation rules that typically apply to IRAs don't apply to a Trump account, even when the growth period ends. So if you leave in the Trump account, it's not classified as an IRA. It's classified as its own thing called the Trump account. The second option is the child can enroll it into a regular traditional IRA. This is allowed, but once you do this, the account loses its special aggregation treatment and it becomes subject to standard IRA rules alongside any other IRA accounts the person might hold. So for example, if you're doing Roth conversions, the pro rata rule would play a part here or take effect if you do roll it to a traditional IRA. All right, so how does the Trump account compare to other savings tools? So Trump accounts aren't really a replacement for other savings tools. They're kind of an additional tool in the toolbox. So some examples to compare it to. So a 529, for example, is specifically designed for education expenses. A Trump account is not. It's a long-term retirement style vehicle with no restrictions on how the child eventually uses distributions other than your typical IRA rules. So if you use it together, for example, a 529 plan and a Trump account, they can serve different purposes. Also, if you compare it against UGMA and UTMA accounts and minor Roth IRAs, they have their own rules and advantages that are different from Trump accounts. So the right combination depends on the family's goals, income, timelines, lots of other factors. So Trump accounts don't necessarily have a huge advantage over other types of accounts available to minors, but they can be a useful supplement. So even a modest contribution over 18 years, especially if it's invested in a low-cost index fund, can compound into something, somewhat significant. The main thing is for newborns, the $1,000 head start from the federal government is basically free money. You just make an election for it and it's free money. So, might as well take that. That's kind of my stance on it. If you get the free money, might as well take it. Nothing wrong with that. So that's a rundown of Trump accounts. So again, if you have a child born during those 4-year periods or during that 4-year period, then, might be worth taking advantage of the $1,000 seed money from the pilot program. All right. As always, you're welcome to reach out if you have questions about this or anything else. You can find me on my website, which is elevationfinancial.com. And you can reach out to me there or book a free consultation if you want to consider becoming a client and have more questions about that. And again, appreciate you being a listener. Thanks for being here today. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.